Welcome to Resolving Reality, an independent Irish media platform. In this fourth video episode, I interview Stefan, a Swedish YouTuber based in Stockholm, Sweden, with a channel called Sanity4Sweden. Visit Stefan's channel and check out those videos using the link down below. Support independent Irish media by supporting Resolving Reality. Don't forget to like, comment and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe. For all our podcasts, articles and video content, check out our website, resolvingreality.com. Okay, Stefan, good morning and welcome to Resolving Reality.
Good morning, Emmett. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, it's good to speak to you. And I've been, a fan of your work on YouTube, and I was very keen to speak to somebody about what's been happening in Sweden, and I've been looking for someone to speak to, and I found your videos, and they're great. They're very informative, very no bullshit, just information, and they're a great source of information for people, especially about what's happening in Sweden and in Scandinavia. So let's talk about that for a moment. How did Sanity4Sweden begin, and why did you decide to start making these videos?
Well, thank you very much, first of all. Well, it actually started with Brexit. I had two sort of good friends living in the Sheffield area in the UK, and we had a good connection. And then the debate started in Britain about Brexit, and I was reading the comments and other comments about Brexit, and I got very curious about this, and I got interested why they were so upset and why they were using such harsh language, and it was like toxic discussions, and it got me interested, and I realized I didn't know very much about the EU. I thought it was I voted against it when we had a referendum here in Sweden back in '93, I think. But I didn't really know how it worked. So then I started to study, and I went to the EU website and just read it. I wanted to know how it works, what they were doing, how it was organized, and very soon I started to get pissed off about how this was working. And it's actually scared me. I realized very soon that this was not democracy. First of all, there was no real democracy. It was something else. And I read more and more, and then I started to go online and find out more stuff. And then I decided to start doing the videos. And as soon as I did, I lost the two friends, by the way, in Sheffield. They just turned their backs on me immediately. So wow. I realized that there was a price.
Yeah. I think that's a familiar story for people who want to tell the truth. There can be consequences like that. So that's what I was going to ask you next. What was the reaction generally to the videos? But that was two negative reactions straight away. But what about otherwise? What was the reaction with people around you or people in general?
I think many people who knew me well were kind of shocked. Yes. The worst thing that happened was actually my girlfriend's folks, family, relatives. When they started to hear about me and my videos, they got very upset, and they started to badmouth me to my girlfriend, actually. And this meant that we just lost contact, because I got pissed off, of course, and my girlfriend got upset and so on. So I think that was the worst example of this.
Yeah.
And there was actually a time in the very beginning when I started to doubt whether I should do the videos or not, because the price was quite high. And I actually stopped for, I think, 3 or 4 days. I just stopped doing them. And I told everybody I will stop doing them. But it was the wrong decision, of course. And I felt just awful about it. So I went back to do them, and I just realized, you know, I just have to speak up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, they can say whatever they want.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible how even just talking nowadays, even just expressing your opinion nowadays can cause a real problem with people, especially when you go against the grain. You know, when you challenge the consensus, people get so freaked out and emotional. I think people are programmed to respond to certain stimuli. You know, so if you start talking about nationalism or being proud of your country or being sovereign, people freak out. They think you want to start some sort of Nazi revolution, and they start to, you know, they back away and they think you're going to do something terrible.
Yeah, it's been an amazing trip actually. When I look at it, you know, how you gradually understand this level of indoctrination that's been going on for so long, because that's what you get up against when you start talking. And just watching this happening in front of your own eyes, sometimes I just felt like, you know, I'm dreaming. This is some surrealistic movie that I'm in, or some, you know, it was so weird, especially in the beginning. And then it's been starting to change gradually, but yeah, it's been an amazing journey actually.
Yeah, it's great.
And you can't go back, you know. Mm-hmm. Once you understood that you have to speak up, you can't go back. You just have to continue. It's this road that you have to go all the way.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing myself recently, and it's, you know, no one ever said it was gonna be easy. I suppose, you know, it's doing the right thing isn't the easy thing to do sometimes. And well, let's talk about you know, how that plays out in Sweden. You know, we can get into people's attitudes and the way things operate over there. But before that, we just give a little an overview of Sweden, I suppose, as if somebody's kind of never really heard of it before, because we hear so much in the media about different countries. But I want to talk to someone in Sweden about it who understands, you know, how things work there. So, I mean, how would you categorize you know, Sweden as a country, say, you know, politically, first of all? You know, would you say they're, you know, right wing, left wing? How would you categorize it?
It's left wing, absolutely. And it's been for a very, very long time. During the 50s and the 60s, Sweden did very, very well. And it was growing financially, and people got good lives. And at the same time, we had the Social Democrats. That's the party that I think they got even 50% in some election, in one of these early elections. So this has been the dominant party for a very long time. We're talking the 30s, since the 30s. And this has been... So while Sweden has been doing so well financially, we have this Social Democrat Party who's been just increasing the taxes all through these years. And people like them for certain reasons. You know, we have this welfare system that's huge, and they built it, basically. And they are absolutely left-wing. They are socialists. They really want to bring in socialism in Sweden. But there was a counter force, you might say, and this was the free enterprise, the free market, which actually built the surplus. And so they haven't been able to do proper socialism. So they had to compromise. So they had done something, a special kind of socialism, you might say. But this has been their idea all along. And of course, this influences how people think in Sweden. People get used to government fundings, big authorities, big government. You know, the government should take care, the state should take care of us. And people have become sort of lazy with this. They didn't have to do anything. The government, the state, just took care of everything. Or at least that's what people thought. So I think this is a big problem. We see this now when Sweden is starting to get into problems and the state is evidently not able to actually take care of everything. And people have to look to themselves and their friends to actually handle the situation. So it's an interesting time we live in.
Yeah, and it's it's interesting when you bring up the socialism thing, because often you hear, because we know that socialism isn't just in Sweden, it's this global thing that's been around for so long, and sometimes it looks like it's disappeared, but not really. And you know, in America, you have, say, people like Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton saying that they describe Sweden as some sort of socialist utopia. And that everything is brilliant, everything is excellent there, and they're a real role model. But as you pointed out there, it was capitalism and free market is the thing that gave Sweden the wealth, and that's what's been driving everything. And as you pointed out also, that you have socialism on one side, the ideology and people who believe in it, and capitalism and free market is the thing that actually makes things work. Even though it's antagonistic to the socialists. Is that a fair assessment of how it works there?
Exactly. This is exactly correct. Yeah. They are dependent on the business doing well. And they pretend that they are not. It's silly. And they actually take credit for the Sweden doing so well all these years. The socialists, they take credit for this. It's really stupid. Yeah,
and well then, so even when you were talking about the population and the attitudes of people, they get so used to the big government system, and it's clear that, like what you're talking about here, that capitalism is the thing that's created the good life for everyone, and the success in productivity in so many ways, and actually produces results. Yet also, and capitalism can be, I know I'm oversimplifying here, but that can connect well with being nationalist or right wing in a way. You're self-sufficient, you organize yourself, etc. But you know, culturally in Sweden or socially, people still consider being right wing or nationalist a bad thing, even though, you know, being sovereign and running your own businesses and having a free market system and capitalism is what produces success. People still mentally think that right-wing and nationalist is a bad thing. You know, what's your thoughts on this?
I do think so. I think in general, the Swedes are sort of proud of the welfare system. You know, people shouldn't be poor. There shouldn't be any homeless people. Things like this, and I agree on this. I think it's a good idea. I mean, if we could spend some money on this, I think so. And I think people are a bit afraid of capitalism and free market. You know, don't let it be too free. You know, we have to regulate. You know, there's some anxiety here in Sweden about it. And especially if you started to talk about politics, right-wing nationalism, there's really an anxiety about this. And that's basically what we are up against when we start to talk about Sweden. We want to have a good country. We want the culture to stay as it is, and so on. People get upset. In general, this is there are lots of people who think like me, of course, these days.
Yeah, and it does become an emotional thing. People don't want to be viewed as evil, or they're programmed to think of nationalism and right wing in a certain way, and that's exactly what the globalists and the leftists count on. They want that negative emotional response to, sovereignty and nationality, national pride, and all that stuff. It's like an emotional manipulation trick almost.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about I can make guesses here, but what about the media in Sweden? Like, what are they generally like? What are they like? What's their attitude towards things again when it comes to things like sovereignty and self-sufficiency? And are they very pro-Sweden, or are they globalist? How do they normally behave?
In general, pretty much globalist. Yes, they are. I think the Swedish media have some sort of order to indoctrinate or educate the citizens. We had a big debate about this. It's been going on for maybe 2 years now, since it became apparent that they were actually censoring certain news. They were reporting some news and not reporting other news. So there's been a big debate about this, and this is now changing. But just 2 years ago, they actually didn't. They didn't want to say the names of people even when they were convicted, because if they were foreign, it would give the wrong message to the population. So things like this they have been doing. And it's still going on. Honestly, it is. It's getting a little better, actually, recently. There's been a big debate also in media. They've been talking to each other because they are running into problems. They are running into people having less confidence in them, and they see this in the surveys that are done. So there's been a discussion in media. And I think they are starting to change because they are losing basically confidence from the audience and viewers. They are losing money because of this. So we'll see.
Yeah, they can only, when they try to sell these ideologies to people over and over and over again and start to tell people how to think, eventually people are going to get pissed off with that and start to have negative reactions. And I think those people who run those organizations, they don't care till it starts to affect their ratings, till it starts to affect their profits and all that stuff. Then they say, oh shit, we need to stop and maybe tone it down a little bit slightly, at least.
I have a story about this, actually, a personal story, because when Trump came along and started to campaign, I just heard how terrible this person was in the media. And it actually made me curious to find out more about this guy. And I started to find some good news about this Mr. Trump. And it was not available in any Swedish media outlet, nothing. And so I had to go into the alternative media. I just had to. And there I found some good news about him. So it actually triggered my interest, because it was such a massive attack daily in the news on Donald Trump. And it had the opposite effect, at least on me. And I think many people started to wonder, people who can think. He's getting elected, Mr. Trump. He's getting elected. So how can he be this bad? It's like it doesn't make sense. So I think many people went into alternative media because of this campaign.
Yeah, the media, they have done it to themselves. Like when they push people too far, they actually get the opposite effect to what they want. Like you say, people will eventually jump ship and say, you know, fuck this, I'm not going to watch television anymore or listen to the radio. I'm going to go to YouTube and go online. So they've kind of done it to themselves. And I'm aware that one of the big problems of globalism that's really happened in the last, especially in the last maybe 5 years in Sweden, or maybe 10 years, would be obviously the mass migration problem, which is something that's happening in lots of places in the Western world. But from what I can see, it's particularly hit Sweden bad and Germany quite bad. I think they're probably two of the main countries where this is becoming a real big problem. But I mean, Sweden always had a history of migration for a while anyway, didn't it? I think. And but what's different between the way it was in the past to the way it is now in the last few years?
It's true. We always had a lot of migrants coming to Sweden from South America, any place, Bosnia, when there was trouble, and they came to Sweden. The difference, I think, first of all, Sweden became the most, with Germany, it became the most popular country to go to because we had this fantastic, beautiful welfare system, and you just go there and you can just collect the money. So it became very popular. And then, so we got lots of people back in 2015 and onwards. But the other thing that happened was that these cultures that came, which was basically Islamic cultures, lots of people, it worked so bad in Sweden. It just didn't work. We have equality, for instance. The values were so different, and so we experienced some major problems because of this. We had success in the past. For instance, Bosnia. There was a war in Bosnia, and a lot of Bosnians came to Sweden. I think it was like I don't remember the year, and they did very, very well in Sweden, and I mean even better than the Swedes themselves in some cases. I think they got like 86% of them had a job very, very quickly. You see, they just came here and started working. So this went very, very well. So it's a difference in cultures, basically. The Bosnian people are quite similar to the Swedes in how we think and how we value things. So it worked well. And they actually used this as an example. When people started to complain about this mass immigration in 2015, these pro-mass immigration guys, they said, look what happened to the Bosnians. They did very, very well. Shut up, basically. So there it is. That's the difference, I think. It's a cultural thing.
Right, yeah, and the devil is in the detail. Not every situation is the same, and not all people are the same. But that's the problem when you're dealing with people who have ideologies in their minds. If they have the globalist, like Michael Jackson, he heal the world, that kind of attitude, where everything is lovely and everybody's the same. In practice, it doesn't work out that way, and not all cultures are the same, and that's why it's probably different. And you mentioned about well, speaking of that, like what parts of the world are the migrants coming from what you see? Is it the Middle East? Is it North Africa, or where is it coming from?
Yeah, it's the Middle East and North Africa, Somalia, Eritrea, Syria, of course, Afghanistan, Iraq, those places.
And they're, I mean, some of them are war torn. You know what they call those places war torn, and I suppose Africa has always had problems. You know, there's a lot of countries there that we could say are war torn. But I mean, from what you can see, again, are they refugees, as in people coming from war torn areas, or are they what people would call economic migrants? Are they coming from places where, you know, they're coming to Sweden for a better life? Which one is it, do you think?
I think 1 in 4 is a real refugee, you know, who had problems. At least during the Syrian war, there was a lot of people from Syria who actually they were in the war and they were fleeing the war. But I think, I don't remember the exact number, I think it was 27% during this time in 2015. 27%. I'm not so sure about this, actually came from Syria. And the rest are, well, I don't know the numbers, but it appears to me that about 70% of those who came to Sweden are economic migrants. They just want a better life. And it could be higher. I'm certain about this.
Wow. And then once the door is open, like we can see with what happened or what's happening in Germany, that, you know, when you have the leader of the country saying, come on in, everything is going to be fine, then what happens is it's easy to lose control of the situation, because when the door is open, you know, it's hard to close the door. And that's, from what I can see, that's kind of what's kind of happened. And I mean, about the migrants themselves as well, you know, are they the ones who are arriving in Sweden? Like, the media will tell us that they are, you know, they're refugees, first of all. We'll call them refugees. They'll also say that they're families and things like that. Would you say that they're families, children, or adults? How would you describe them?
Well, most of them are young male. Yeah, absolutely. This is well documented. So, young males from 18 to 28 years old. That's the most common refugee that we get. And, you know, I feel I had a struggle with this, you know, because I like other cultures, you know, and I meet a lot of people from other countries in my work, and I have friends, and I usually get along with them very well. And so when I started to understand that because of this mass immigration, we got lots of problems with raping, for instance. There was this struggle within myself, you know. I had to accept the fact that this didn't actually work, and that I didn't like it, because you know, I don't like the fact that I have to be critical towards this, but I have to.
Yeah. I mean, that's my attitude as well. And, you know, it's difficult because, you know, people will accuse you of having no compassion, or, you know, you don't have any sort of concern for other human beings who might be suffering and things like that. But the reality of the situation is that it's more complex than just the emotional. You know, it's a big deal when you have massive amounts of people moving from one area to another area. That's going to cause problems. Like, I always say to people, imagine all the Irish people in the world. I think there are probably more people with Irish blood outside of Ireland than in Ireland. And if someone said, let's bring back 5 million Irish people soon, and it's just going to be fine, I would say, oh, that sounds really nice, you know, but how is that going to actually operate? You know, where are people going to live? Where are they going to work? Is it going to cause problems? And be rational about it. That's what would be my attitude. But some people, if they're just being emotional about this, they're not considering the consequences, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a tough thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't really care much about what people think. It's, for me, it was a personal thing. What is right? What is wrong? You know. But they did a very, very bad mistake here in Sweden when they opened the borders back in 2014, and they didn't put a stop to it. They did a big mistake.
Yeah. They presume as well. They say that they talk about integration and multiculturalism and stuff like that. But I mean, when from what you've seen there, and with all the migrants coming in, does integration actually work? Or I mean, is it true that there are also there are parts of Sweden where the police can't go into because they're losing control of the situation? So do you think integration has worked in Sweden, or has it not worked for the migrants?
It's been a disaster, basically. I don't know if you compare to other countries, but I think Sweden is a good example of what not to do. Yeah, it's been a disaster. We have the police are having problems, huge problems. The politicians are just wobbling with this, and they don't have any real solutions. Yeah, it's a big problem in Sweden. I know one number is that less than 50% of those who came will have a proper job in 8 or 10 years, I think. At least less than 50%. So,
right. And
we have these no-go zones that are growing, and there's more of them every year. And these are, I have personal experience with this. I have in my work been traveling all around Stockholm suburbs doing work. And now there are areas where I don't go. And not even the police go there unless they have an escort. And the ambulance or the firemen, they won't go there unless they have escorts. So, of course, I don't go there. It's awful.
It's crazy stuff. This is like military level stuff. Like the police need to go in and they need support. I mean, eventually, if that keeps happening, eventually they're not going to be able to, physically deal with it. They're going to end up being overrun, the authorities, and lose control here entirely. And of course, it's the everyday people on the street that will pay the price, in terms of violence and the social disorder. And I mean, on that topic, I've also heard, again, I'm not sure if this is true or not, that you have like a vigilante situation arising in Sweden, where you have groups of people who don't trust the police anymore to do their job, and they're going out to try to deal with problems like assaults and rapes. Is there any truth to this? Is that what's happening there?
Yes, it is. Yeah, and we see people. There's a big interest in arming yourself, learning how to defend yourself. The sale of pepper spray is growing. People are starting to build communities within these societies, trying to protect themselves. We see there's more and more talk about hiring guards. I mean, real guards, patrolling areas, neighborhoods. This is going on. And of course, then we have the people moving out. This is the first thing that happened, I think. When you get one of these areas infested, you might say, we see people moving out to where they are more safe, of course. Mm-hmm. We have one example of this. There was this socialist politician who was living in one of these areas, and she was very pro mass immigration and so on, integration. She was living in one of those areas. Even she had to move out eventually.
Mm. Yeah, because eventually it becomes what they call a hard sell. You know, when it's right in front of your face and you're under physical attack. I think it's time to say that, you know, this is a stupid idea. You know, you start to think about buying guns and weapons. You think, well, this might not be a good idea. So with the of course, what's been talked about a lot is the problem with the cultural clash has created this problem of the whole rape problem there. And Sweden has been described as like the rape capital of the world. Now, it's crazy when I hear this, because I've always considered Swedish people and Sweden to be so laid back. And then when I heard stuff like that, this is crazy stuff. And so, I mean, why do you think that the rape thing has happened, and why is that becoming such a problem there?
It's a tough question. I'm not doing the raping, I can tell you that. But, well, I think, first of all, the Swedish women are quite beautiful in general. And they are, if you come from a culture where people are dressed up in veils and burqas, and you see these Swedish young women walking around the streets, you might get an idea. You know. And I think that's where it is, how you value women, or how you treat women and what they are. In Sweden, they are equal, and they can dress however they want, of course, you know. Mm-hmm. But and it's you know, we see a lot of girls in bikinis on the beaches, of course, beautiful women. So I don't know what happened, but these guys, some of them, it's not very many of them if you look at it percentage-wise, but they feel that they have this right, I suppose, to have sex with them.
Wow, it's amazing, and it's I think as Western men, we are used. It's normal for us to deal with women who have that freedom to look how they want, and there's plenty of attractive people around. And I agree, Swedish women are beautiful women as well. But we are accustomed to this. You know, it's normal for us. It's not a big deal. But if you have these people coming from a different culture who look at things differently, then maybe it's just too much for them, you know, mentally to deal with. They don't have to norm. It's almost like a child, you know, a child who just wants what they want. They don't have to have any sort of self-control at all. You know, when you learn self-control as you mature and you get older. So it's kind of comparable to children in a way, where some of them might just have these urges and they just go and try and take what they want.
Yeah, maybe. I don't have an answer to this. I just know it happens. It's quite tragic. Mm. I feel sorry for the women. There's a lot of stories, and I just stopped reporting on them on my channel because there's so many of them. And just feels awful to do it.
Yeah, it's crazy with same here. You know, I feel bad for the victims who it happens to, of course, and they shouldn't have to deal with stuff like that in their lives. You know, no woman in the Western world should have to, or woman anywhere should have to deal with this. But especially in Western countries where things are like they are culturally, women shouldn't have to worry about stuff like that. You know, life is hard enough. That's how I feel about it. And like, what do the feminist groups say in Sweden? Because I know there's feminist groups are quite powerful there, just like in a lot of other Western countries. I mean, feminist groups say that they care about women's rights. So how do they feel about the migration problem? Surely they would be against it, logically.
That's a question. Well, I'll just give you one example of this. How they act, the feminists. There was this case a couple of years ago on this island of Sweden, Gotland, where a woman who was handicapped was raped by five guys from an asylum accommodation. Okay, I think there were 5 guys, maybe 3 guys. So, and they raped her. And the local community, the people in this area, got so angry about this. So they started to take action. So they went to visit the asylum accommodation. They did protests in the streets, and they were, rallying. So what happened? Well, the feminist organizations here in Stockholm went over there and did a counter rally against these locals.
What did they say? Did they have the signs and everything? And
oh yeah, Nazis, go home. We don't want any Nazis here. So on and so on. That's what they did, and they were, they were very aggressive. These feminists.
Wow! And so what did they have to say about the victim?
Nothing. Nothing.
Oh my God. So what if you like that protest, or the first protest group, if you say that, we don't really like this idea of mass migration, maybe it's creating problems, that are everywhere now. What do people say about you? What's the response? Is it just the feminist groups who criticize you, or like who else does?
Well, it's the whole left wing, actually. It's the Green Party people, the Marxists, basically, that will attack you.
Mm-hmm.
And the feminists, they are sort of, this is like a family here in Sweden. The Marxists, the feminists, and the communists, and the Greens.
Yeah, they all have. It's hilarious when you understand socialism and you understand totalitarianism and Marxism. You look at all these different things and you study them. Really, when you boil them all down, it's just ideologies at the bottom. That's why they're all so similar. They have their different. Here we have lots of different groups: pro-migrant groups, feminist groups, and a lot of them have the fist, the clenched fist and everything. It's so predictable. It's the same ideology at the bottom, really, and that's why I think they're all working together.
Yeah, they get along, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, one big happy family.
Yeah.
So what about the rest of Scandinavia then? I mean, what's Sweden like? Is that the exception in Scandinavia, or is it typical, for Scandinavia, how things operate there? Is it similar to its neighbours, or is it different at all?
We are quite similar to Finland, actually. We are, the debate climate is quite similar in Finland, and the government sort of structure and this left wing is leaning left wing, globalist. It's quite similar to Finland, and they are having very similar problems to Sweden right now, actually, with grooming gangs, so on. Then it's Norway and Denmark, and those are a bit different from Sweden, mainly because of the debate. The debate is different. It's more open. It's more critical. It's more positive to be critical. They have the same, of course. They have the lefties and the right wing, but it's better. And the governments are better in Norway and Denmark, especially Denmark. I know I have some Danish friends who say that I'm too optimistic about the Danish government, but I really am. I think it's a very smart government, which is starting to look a bit like the Italian government now, or the Hungarian or the Polish. So they are doing a good job in Denmark. So that's the difference. And the Danish, they have been nervous about Sweden. It's very close, just a bridge.
Yeah, Malmö is very close, Malmö.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they are nervous about what's happening in Sweden because it is affecting them when these criminal gangs expand and so on. They move into Copenhagen and they import a lot of guns and stuff via Denmark. So, and the Danish have been critical to the Swedish government, basically, because the Swedish government has been keeping the nationalists out of influence at all cost. And the Danish, some of them have been saying, why do you do this? This is stupid. This is not democracy. So they have been lecturing the Swedish government about how to run a proper democracy. And this is fantastic.
Yes.
And the Swedish lefties government people, they are nervous about the Danish because something is happening in Denmark, and they want to, keep them away, keep these ideas out.
Yeah, no common sense in here. You can't. It's a disease. We need to keep sanity out. Well, that's amazing. With Denmark, Denmark is in such a position. You think about with this whole globalist mass migration, left wing problem we have in the Western world. I think Denmark is probably in one of the worst positions if you look at a map, because it's right between. It shares a border with Germany on the south, and it's really close to the south tip of Sweden. It's in such a difficult position to be in, and they probably need to have this. They will wake up faster because they're in such a difficult position with the problems on either side that they have to have this sort of reaction.
Yeah, I think so. And they were like Sweden a few years ago, with open borders. A lot of people came there, and they are having problems similar to Sweden now, but they are more pragmatic about it, and they really want to solve it. They present solutions that could actually work. So, and the Swedish government don't. Their solutions are just silly. So there's a big difference between Sweden and Denmark. And it's also interesting to see how Denmark is close to the southern tip of Sweden, because the southern parts of Sweden are now called the racist part of Sweden. You see? Because there, in this part of Sweden where we have lots of immigrants, nationalism is growing quicker than the rest of the country. So, yeah, maybe there will be an alliance there sometime in the future between Denmark and the southern parts of Sweden. The southern parts of Sweden used to belong to Denmark back in the old days, in the 17th century.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. So, well, that might be a consequence of all of this stuff, that you start to see division. Because, I mean, the borders are disappearing anyway, thanks to the globalists and the EU. So maybe you'll have people just forming alliances based on their own ideology. So people in south of Sweden will maybe have enough of this and start to go nationalist. And regardless of what happens anywhere else in Sweden, in Stockholm or anywhere else, they will just kind of bond with the Danes, and they'll just start to kind of protect themselves and look after themselves.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see this happening in the southern part of Sweden. They have most of the problems. Malmö is living there, and there are some other towns where you see similar problems. So these people have experienced this situation more than us here in Stockholm, for instance. And of course, this will affect you. This will make you think differently. So the nationalists are doing very, very well in this region.
Yeah, it's, you know, the problems are confronting them right in their faces, and then eventually people just get tired of it and start to take over. And you know, because the plan is more advanced. They're at a more advanced step of the plan. You know, the migration thing is more more advanced there, more further progressed, true progressiveness. And so what message would you have then if you were talking to people from Ireland or another country where it's not as advanced as Sweden in this plan? What would you say to someone who thinks that, you know, mass migration is a really good idea?
Well, I know a bit about Ireland. I have friends there, and I know about your PM, Varadkar, and his plan to increase immigration massively. That's what I hear. Mm-hmm. So my message is just don't let him do it. Get rid of him, vote him out, and get some conservative, more nationalist in charge of your country, and just stop it, because you will have problems. Yeah.
Yes, Ireland, I think as well, this is looking at the global picture here. I think that Ireland, because it's at the edge of Europe, you know, it's right at the end, it's almost like the plan to change the Western world has a certain schedule or maybe a format to this plan, and Ireland is behind. You know, it's because it's further away from the Middle East and North Africa. Maybe their strategy is slightly different, and they want to speed up the plan in Ireland, if you know what I mean, bring in more quicker. And what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I was thinking about this. What is the welfare system? Will they get money when they come, or do they have to, you know, will they get enough money? Will this be enough for them to actually want to go to Ireland? These economic refugees.
Yeah, there is a system here for that, and I'm not sure exactly what the details are, because they're starting to change the laws on certain things, like when it comes to citizenship and when it comes to how they treat migrants. They have migrant centres and direct provision centres, but there is a welfare system here, yes, and it's becoming available to migrants.
I see. Well, I saw, for example, countries like Lithuania. They also wanted to have a lot of people there, going there, but they just left because they didn't get enough money, so they went to Germany instead. You know, they had these quotas. The EU had these quotas, migrant quotas. So they decided we should send all these guys to Lithuania, and they did. And within a week, they were sort of gone, you know. So that's also one aspect of it, I think. Sweden has been so good for anyone to come to. You don't have to work. You don't have to put in any effort. You can just collect the money. And but I think maybe this is true. You know, the plan was to do this in the center of Europe, France, Italy, Germany, of course. And that now they are sort of rushing the cycle in Ireland. Maybe it seems like a desperate thing, this thing. I don't know the numbers, but I heard something about getting a million new people into Ireland within a certain number of years. Is this true?
Yeah, well, there was that. I remember some of the details in Stefan Molyneux's video, you know, the one about Ireland 2040. There's this new plan that they have, and Varadkar with another one. I can't remember the woman's name. One of his globalist sidekicks in the Irish government. I can't remember all their names because they're all the same to me. But they're talking about bringing in a certain amount of migrants and making it illegal to obstruct it and make it easier for citizenship and all of that stuff. And, you know, about the welfare system, Stefan Molyneux mentioned that, you know, he said, imagine if you're a migrant and you're in some country in Africa or wherever where the standard of living is really bad, they have all of these problems, and someone says, hey, would you like to move to another country where, you know, you can get free money and the state will help you and a much better standard of living? Would you rather go or stay where you are? Well, Stefan Molyneux made the point that of course you would go. You know, of course you would go because things are easier there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, Stefan, and this has been really cool. We're just at 10 o'clock now, and but it's been really good to hear your thoughts about things, and you know, I really enjoy the videos as well, so I'll keep watching those, and I'll make sure to pass your message on to the Irish people. I will I will try my best, because here people haven't, because the problems haven't reached here yet. Unfortunately, things need to get dramatic before some people wake up. Some of us are already awake, but for the ordinary everyday people who listen to the state and listen to the media, things, they don't see any problem with this just yet. And we had a protest. There was a protest in Dublin City at the beginning of December about the UN Migration Pact, and there was a protest against the Migration Pact, and of course, and I think there's like maybe 100 Irish nationalists there, and of course the socialists arrived with their own protest, calling the nationalists racists and fascists. You know, of course, like they're robots and they're programmed to arrive with the signs, you know, ready to protest. That's what things are like here now. Many people have yet to wake up to this, because in Ireland there's no consequences yet. That's the overview.
I see. Well, I like the Irish, you know, and I like Ireland. I would love to go there. So I certainly hope that you will wake up quicker than the Swedes did. And we haven't still woken up yet in Sweden. So this is it's a lot of work to be done. It was a pleasure to be part of this, Emmett. Thank you very much.
No worries, Stefan. My pleasure. And we'll do this again soon.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Resolving Reality. That was my conversation with Stefan, a Swedish YouTuber with a channel called Sanity4Sweden. Make sure you check out Stefan's videos using that link down below. But before you do that, subscribe to Resolving Reality and check out the Resolving Reality Radio podcasts, and also visit our website, resolvingreality.com. Once again, thanks for watching. Until next time, and enjoy Resolving Reality.